Everyone, welcome to another Animation Friday. Apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over the weekend and did not have time to upload videos until now. Excuse me. So without further ado, let me address what I want to talk about for this particular Animation Friday, and that has to do with South Park, in particular my personal favorite episodes, at least the ones that I have seen. Now, I will say I am not the biggest South Park fan, only because I haven't seen all of the episodes, and I'm not someone who watches it on a continuous basis, but I will say that it is a very impressive show for what it is, and it actually provides a lot of great commentary onto various things relating either to pop culture or addressing very kind of more deeper subjects that oftentimes you don't see, at least comedy shows, in particular even animated comedy shows, do. So I think it's really nice to have such a show around, and I think it is very hilarious in the episodes that I have seen. I just say that I'm not really a personal fan, only because I'm not really devoted too much to the series. And again, I don't really like to consider myself really a fan of anything really personally. I just like to consider myself somebody who either likes something or doesn't really like something. So that's just the way I really interpret things. But let me dive in though and discuss the ones that at least stood out to me or have been the ones that have uh, taken a special place in my heart to liking very much. Starting off with Black Friday. Black Friday is probably one of the most interesting and carefully and interestingly constructed South Park episodes I've ever seen. And I say episodes because this is divided into 3 parts. And so you have episode 1, 2, and 3. And they're all sort of part of this Black Friday storyline. Now, what's basically involved is you'll notice how the characters within the episodes try to take sides on whether or not PlayStation or Xbox is a superior game. And there's references to anime and to Microsoft and to Game of Thrones, all wrapped into the Black Friday holiday season, because that's when the episode takes place. And it is just brilliant. I mean, just the way that they orchestrate this entire storyline is just so hilarious, so full of poking fun at various things and having them sort of all make sense in their own strange and bizarre way. And I really enjoy how over the top they make Black Friday. I mean, it's just insane what happens in this episode on Black Friday. I mean, they go all out. And, you know, it really ties in with something like Game of Thrones. And they even have a reference to the wedding that was supposedly takes place within that show in South Park. So it's just very, very fascinating to see this all kind of orchestrated. And even though, again, it is sort of bizarre and really those things don't really kind of interconnect, like obviously Game of Thrones is not really related to Black Friday, and really video games are not necessarily directly linked to Game of Thrones, unless there is maybe a Game of Thrones video game out there or something, you know. But all the way in which all of these things tie together are just so brilliantly thought out and just fun to watch. I mean, really entertaining. You know, it just really takes all of the interesting and really significant aspects that we note of the various things that it talks about in the episode and up blows them out of comedic proportions. And it's entertaining and it's engaging, and you want to know what ultimately sort of happens and how they sort of end up wrapping up this whole sort of kind of interestingly brilliant masterpiece of comedy that they created. So it's just it's just brilliant. Just well thought out, very interesting, and I am so happy that they make fun of all of these different things and just culminate it into this one thing. And that's rarely what you see in a lot of episodes of, in particular, even comedy shows in general. They usually comment on one thing, and then that one thing is really the centerpiece of the comedy. But here you have all of these different things that are not really so quasi related, tied in together in a very interesting and cohesive way, to the point where you can sort of um, get behind what's going on. So it was really well thought out in that sense, and I think definitely worthy of recommendation if you really enjoy South Park, because I think it takes in all of these particular aspects that South Park is really known for and sort of puts it into this three-part episode sort of trilogy, I guess. The second episode that I want to briefly mention, and this is just one episode in particular, is Fish Sticks. Now, this one I think is noted as being one of the better of the South Park episodes, only because of one reason. Unlike the other episode that I mentioned, there's a variety of different things and kind of pokes fun at various different uh, cultural elements that sort of exist, and in particular pop culture. This one references only really one or two, really, and that's Kanye West. And just the way they orchestrate it is really interesting, because um, it just stems off of just a particular joke that one of the characters sort of writes and creates, and you'll sort of see how it kind of gets blown out of proportion, and how it ultimately sort of propels into a certain level of stardom. And the joke is sort of referenced to Kanye West at one point, you'll see within the episode. And the interesting thing is uh, Kanye West doesn't really get the joke throughout the episode, and so he's kind of mad in a way, and is sort of trying to figure out exactly what exactly the fish sticks means. And again, it has to do with fish sticks. So he's so bamboozled by this, and obviously there's the whole reference to with Kim Kardashian and The Hobbit that's in there as well, which is also really funny. And just the way that they utilize Kanye West in this way, and in doing so, blow something way out of proportion with just one particular joke, I think is actually really creative and shows what their capabilities are, and how that's sort of true, and how we sort of display everything with media. Media is sort of like everything's based within like sound bites or one particular joke. And I think South Park was really tapping into that sort of phenomena, how just this one particular joke or this one particular thing can just blossom into this huge sensation like overnight, and sort of commenting on the stupidity that kind of even follows after that. And you'll sort of see what ends up happening to Kanye West as he sort of discovers what the fish sticks is referring to and all that, and it's just hilarious. It's really just funny how over the top they make everything seem out of just one simple kind of straightforward joke. Even though you may or may not get the joke, uh, even though some people may or may not get the joke, even though the audience, you're sort of given the context into the joke. So again, it's pretty hilarious, and it is actually something that again shows the uniqueness of South Park, and in particular their ability to really get across things through their writing and the way they represent the animation and whatnot. Third episode that I wanted to briefly mention is You Got F'd in the A. This one is really hilarious, also, in how ridiculous it is. Because again, it's sort of going back to sort of the pop culture, certain bits and pieces of it. But one of the characters in particular, Stan, is challenged by some kids from the OC. I believe OC stands for Orange County. And basically they challenge him to a dance-off, and he sort of has to get a sort of dance team together to battle these OC kids. And you'll see how Butters comes into the picture, but unfortunately Butters has a very unfortunate circumstance happen to him in the past, and it sort of haunts him. And you'll sort of see how that impacts the whole dancing contest that they end up having. And within and of itself, it's just hilarious. It's just so unbelievably ridiculously funny. Like, it's kind of disturbing in a way, because again, the way in which they display the comedy, you know, there's a little bit of sadness to it, and you sort of see, you know, Butters having to deal with this horrible thing that happened, and you know, just having it seen played out in this episode, it's just so it's just unbelievably hilarious. Like, you just, even though it's so kind of horrifying in a way, it's just so unbelievably funny and original. And I like the idea of them commenting on all the whole stupid dance craze that was going on for some time, which really was a big thing at one point, where people were literally you know, doing dance-offs with each other, and you know, it was just this really kind of stupid contest. And I like how they kind of make fun of the stupidity that surrounded that whole kind of phenomena, where it really wasn't about really showcasing talent within dancing, just so much of, oh, can you really bust a move, and do you have rhythm? Like, that's really all that whole dance craze thing was. And you know, just to see Stan too try to kind of get this whole team together of people who, you know, you wouldn't really expect to be sort of a dance team, is also quite interesting, and leads to a lot of funny little bits of humor here and there as well. So it's, again, something that is well done, well orchestrated, and well thought out and put together. And it's kind of in the middle, in between the first episode that I talked about and the second episode that I talked about, because it has sort of a simplistic way of approaching certain aspects to the plot, like the second episode that I mentioned, but it has sort of this over-the-top nature to it that is somewhat more trying to resemble the first episode that I talked about, where it's very over-exaggerated and a little crazy. So yeah, but I think that's really ultimately all I can say about that episode, without really giving too much away. And lastly, I think this one is actually quite brilliant as well. And this one is titled, You Have Zero Friends. So basically, Stan ends up creating a Facebook account. He's sort of forced into it, kind of. And he sort of ends up discovering, you know, how ridiculous the whole Facebook craze is. And it's great to see, again, South Park commenting on this kind of stuff, because they're really good at commenting on this kind of thing. And you sort of see how crazy it gets, and how far down people go to really, you know, kind of really gain friendship on this, you know, or basically a internet website, really. I mean, it's just, and I say internet website's pretty redundant, but I mean, you know, it's just unbelievable the amount of social pressure that goes into it. And South Park really does a good job in hammering that point down, and it really shows you how maddening and kind of even disorienting it could be, and how it sort of is in and of itself its own kind of little world, and it sort of separates us from the real world, kind of. And you'll see how sort of Stan gets into the Facebook eventually, And I think that was just something that was very interesting and lended itself to a lot of laughs. And again, this one is again focusing on something that's a little bit more specific, but at the same time, instead of the jokes sort of leading up to something that's very hilarious, this one just kind of has laughs throughout for me. I think it wasn't designed to be like having this big ha 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 laugh out loud funny moment, like a lot of other South Park episodes I think do, but it was kind of sort of more, I think, consistent. At least the comedy I thought was a little bit more consistent. Uh, but those are my personal favorites, though. I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say in regards to South Park, and if they have any personal favorite ones that they like to watch. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say, though. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.